Today we're going to talk about reconciling your 411 grand list, and this has been live for just a couple days now, so we have found a few things out through folks trying it, and we'll talk about those as we go through. We have a couple things that will be corrected in our next installation to production, so we'll talk about each of those as well. All right, so your 2025 grand list. First step is making sure that you've submitted your January 15th final 24 grand list. I know we have most people have submitted those already, so thank you for that. Same process you've done before that you've used for the August submission and for the past many years. So I will get that done. We're actually going to use the exemption and TIF records from this export. That's going to be what goes into 2025. You couple that with your CAMA upload. Now you've captured ownership, all of the parcels, any transfers, new parcels, merge parcels, all that fun stuff, and the exemptions and TIF if you have it. So the first step in 25 will be to upload your CAMA. If you're not using the NEMRC grand list Microsoft combination, so if you're using Patriot, Vision, etc., just make sure that you've sent off a sample export so that we can just take a look at it and make sure that the system's capturing everything that you'll need in VTPIE. I've gotten a lot of them, and those of you that use a vendor to kind of manage that for you, I've gotten a lot of submissions from those folks as well. So those are coming in. They're looking pretty good. So we're looking forward just giving everybody the thumbs up on that and sending you all feedback and saying, hey, here's what we got out of that CAMA export, and just making sure that that lines up with what we should be getting. All right, so I want to jump right into creating the 24 grand list because this is where you're going to start. So for those of you that have Microsoft and grand list, you won't be able to upload a new CAMA into 24 if you haven't already, because that stopped at the end of the month, or at the beginning of the month, excuse me. But you can use the latest CAMA that you have for testing as long as it ties to a grand list that you know about that we can check against. The ideal is that you have the CAMA submission that you did with your final January 15th submission sitting there as your as build. And from there, all you're going to do is click create a grand list. So this will be a new option that wasn't there before that will be available to you now. So it's just that one click. And what that's going to do is snapshot all of the values that go into a grand list and tie them to that CAMA upload. So you can do this as many times throughout the year as you'd like. And each time it's going to snapshot that. So you can always look back at what that was then. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep people muted here to reduce the background noise. So sorry about that disruption there. Okay. So once you've created a grand list, you can view your grand list. So we'll just click on view here. And again, I'm going to show all of this to you in the application as well. So we click view grand list. And now we're just looking at some summary data from the grand list on the screen. So we've got a summary of our real property, our TIFs, our exemptions, and our current use. So these are our tabs across the top. We can download our grand list into Excel. So if you just want to get a listing of all the properties and all that grand list information, you can download that to Excel. And then on the right-hand side here, you have the reports, and these are all of the reports that you're used to seeing. So your 411 grand list, covenant restricted housing, current use exemption report, the multiple signature pages that you need, special exemptions, all that fun stuff. I do want to highlight here on the 411, that top section where it shows you the real property summary. I'm going to show you that in just a moment. That, as it stands right now, is showing non-taxable properties, and it shouldn't. So we had a bunch of people report that. We have that corrected on our test server, so that'll be going out in the next day or so to get that resolved. So if that first section, I'll show you there in just a moment, isn't tying out the differences likely non-taxable properties, the section here that you'll see on the screen, that is displaying the correct amount. So it's just that printable report that we need to get resolved. We'll let you all know once that's all sorted out as well. Okay, so reconciling. Remember, we're in 2024. So if we run that VTPIE 411, so the 411 report, and a NEMRC 411 that coincides with that CAMA upload. So if that's your final as build for 24, grab your final as build 411 from NEMRC. And the first thing we're going to compare is real and personal property. And again, it's going to be a bit different here by non-taxable. That is an error. We will get it corrected. So you'll be able to compare this and then one section down your personal property, cable, and inventory. So you'll notice the form 411 is almost identical to the form that you used to, so you don't have to get to know a new style of 411. It's pretty much the same. The next thing you want to do is check to see that all of your exemptions have transferred successfully from NEMRC. So we'll start here on the 411. So next section down, the exemptions. Just take a look at that and compare it to what you see on your 411 from NEMRC. So this should line up. Each of these categories, all the groupings are all the same as they have been.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. There it is. Yeah.
1 second here. Okay, sorry about that. So you're going to compare all of these contracts, and then we're going to go back to our exemptions. So if something doesn't match up, we're going to go check directly in exemptions. So this is a new section. It's in tax program. So right where current use is, there's a new module called exemptions. So if something doesn't match, we're going to go take a look at the exemptions directly and do a more detailed reconciliation and figure out what's going on. So if everything does match, you're all set to just roll into 25, but we're going to take a look at the process for if they don't match. So exemption review, the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the import log. So this is going to list any problems that we had importing the exemptions that you guys sent us. There are almost none of these. There's like less than 20 across the entire state. So most likely you will click this and it'll say nothing found and you're good to go to the next step. Step 2 is looking at the exemption report. So we'll use the reports to reconcile and try to determine what exemption might be missing or which one might be off. Then we're just going to resolve any problems that we find. So this might be adding an exemption, removing an exemption, changing the dollar amount of an exemption. And then we're all set. We can update our grand list and we should pie out. And I do want to note, this is a one-time process, right? We've got all your exemptions in now. We're going to reconcile them, true them up. We'll push them into 25. And then that's it. Now you're on to just kind of normal maintenance of your exemptions as you normally would. So this reconciliation, just a one-time process. So let's take a look at what that entails. So again, you're going to go to tax programs. You're going to see some new fields showing up here. Exemptions that are missing dates, exemptions that are expiring, and unresolved review comments. So those first two pertain to voted exemptions. So if you have an exemption that was voted and it doesn't have the date you voted it, the date that it's going to expire and all that stuff, it will show up here. So you want to go in and get those resolved. And then exemptions expiring is just going to highlight any exemptions expiring in the next 6 months. So those are exemptions that you'll want to look at. So if we go into exemptions here, just to orient you to the screen, we have a listing of the types of exemptions here in the table. So we have municipally owned property exemption and school unions and school district exemption. And we have 5 properties in municipally owned and 1 property in the school exemption. So these are like our exemption buckets. Everybody or every property that needs a municipally owned exemption will go into that municipally owned exemption and add properties to it. Same thing with the school. So these are just buckets of properties that have this type of exemption. And we'll walk through that in a little more detail as well. Up across the top, we have some key functions here. So we have roll exemptions to 25. That's the last thing we're going to do in 24. We have view import log. That's the first. So right here next to each other. And then we have our reports also available on the top right, and we'll look at those as well. So once again, these are statutory exemptions, municipally owned property, 5 properties enrolled. Got your exempt amounts here. So your municipal exemption, your homestead exemption, and your non-homestead exemption. So that's a sum for all the properties in that bucket, all the properties that have that type of exemption. So clicking on view import log here again, this is our first step. And you're not going to see this many, but this is just saying, hey, here are 3 spans that I got an exemption record for. I don't know what to do with it. So in this case, it's just saying, hey, the statutes didn't have any data. So I don't know where to put it for this span. So what do you do in that case? Just use the spans to look up the parcels in NEMRC to figure out what exemptions they should have, and just add or edit the appropriate exemption. So not a big deal. Again, this is a one-time thing. If you want to go a little bit further, you can use the exemption report, which has a parcel by parcel breakdown. We'll take a look at that so that you can see here are each parcel that is enrolled in a particular type of exemption. And then if you need to, you can add entire exemption types, and we'll take a look at that. So let's say you need to make some corrections, or you move into 25 and you just need to maintain your exemptions, add a couple, remove a couple, etc. So again, the exemption types are the buckets that contain properties with exemptions in them. In this case, we have our 5. There's a button on the bottom right of the screen, which is add exemption type. So clicking on that gives you a new bucket. These are ordered a little bit differently in this drop down than you might be used to, but I think it's very intuitive. You can see how it is here. Educational exemptions, there are all the education. Government, there are all the government. So that's how they're grouped in that drop down. So you can add those as buckets and then just add property to the buckets, grants them the exemption. So it's pretty straightforward. We also have a grand list viewer available. I'll show you that in the app. It's really straightforward, but this is where you can see which exemptions a property has. Are they in current use with the veterans and some other type of exemption? It pulls everything together for you. So we'll take a look at that too. So once we're in an exemption type, so again, in a bucket of exemption, here's what we're going to look at. So number 1 here, you can add properties to that exemption type. So in this case, school union. The number 2 here is set exemption to a dollar value. So remember, this is just a bucket of properties. So we've got 1 property was in this school union exemption bucket. And clicking set exemption to dollar value will let me just say, for every property in here, I want to exempt $10,000, and it will do that for everybody, say on the municipal side. It will add that exemption to everybody. If there's a $5,000 property, it will see that and add a $5,000 exemption. So we'll let you go over that. Set exemption to listed value is if all of these should just be 100% exempt. You can just click set exemption to listed value, and that's what it will do. It will just set all of the exemption for education and municipal to the listed value of the property. And finally, number 4 here, just wanted to point out that this is a link. So this will go right to VSA, Vermont Statutes Annotated, and will bring you to the section about the exemption in question. So if you want to know exactly what the law says about the exemption that you're working with, you can use that and it will hop out right to it for you. So let's say we want to add a new property to this exemption. We click the add property, we search for the property, just like you would if you were changing a parcel on current use, just like you would if you're changing a property on a sale for equalization. So you just search for that property record by span by your local parcel ID, select that, and then it will give you a screen that looks just like this. So up on the top, it's showing you the parcel that you're working with. It does let you attach things to this exemption if that's appropriate. So public pious, for example, you could attach that here if it was that type of exemption. And that's tagged to that particular property's exemption. So if there's anything that you want to keep with that, you can. That will follow it year over year. And then we have our exempt amount. So first row here is the assessed value. You have your exemption and then assessed minus exemptions taxable. So you can put in your municipal exemption. You can put in your homestead, non-homestead exemption here. And everything will track homestead, non-homestead as the homestead declarations come in. So some helpful exemption reports here. We'll look at both of these in the app. You have just your regular exemption report. So this is just parcel by parcel listing and which exemptions they have. So it will group each type together and show you all the properties that have that. Then you have the exemption audit report, which I really like. This is meant to show the municipalities exactly what the state's going to be looking at when they review your exemptions. So it has a section for each one of these items. So new exemptions, it's going to show you exemptions that were not in place last year. For 24, that doesn't mean much, so don't pay too much attention to that. Deleted exemptions. So exemptions that were in place last year but have disappeared this year. Again, for 24, not that informative since it's our first year. Veterans exemption granted by the town, but not on the approved list. So you don't want these, right? So the VA says this person doesn't necessarily deserve an exemption, but you have one listed as granted. So it will show you that. And the inverse, if the VA says they should be getting an exemption, but you haven't put that in. So those two are meant to just true up the list of veterans exemption that you're supposed to have with the list that you're granting and show you both ways that they could be out of sync. The next section of the report is exemptions that are greater than the listed value. So in other words, a $100,000 property with a $120,000 exemption. Not good. The program doesn't let you do that. But you know, where there's a will, there's a way, and there's always accidents. So this section should always be empty. You shouldn't see anything here, but if you do, you know it's a problem. So it's just there to confirm you haven't made any negative listed values with the exemptions. And then the last section, exemption value change from the prior year. So the real value of the property is not the same as it was last year, and you're going to have to update those exemptions. So again, this exemption audit report is super useful, I think. Gives you a really good way to focus on reviewing your exemptions in a way that's productive. Okay, so let's say we found some exemption issues. We went in, we found them in exemptions, we corrected them. Now we want to go into our grand list and let's see that we've corrected the problem. So we're going to go back to where we do our CAMA uploads. We're going to go to that CAMA upload we were working with that we created the grand list, except now we're going to click recalculate grand list. So remember I said it freezes everything in time. So when you clicked create grand list, it grabbed all of your property records. It grabbed all the exemptions, all the TIFs. and it lumped all of that together and current use, and it brought all that together to make your grand list. So that stays exactly as it was when you created that. Clicking recalculate goes out and refreshes exemptions, current use, and TIF. So we're going to want to do that so that we can recalculate and see that we've corrected the issues on our grand list. You could also just do another CAMA upload and just create a new grand list. It works exactly the same. If you want to leave one to say this is where I started and here's my 2024 final grand list, this is after I corrected everything, you can do that too. So totally up to you how you want to deal with that. But once you've got everything so that it's tying out, you're ready to roll your exemptions over to 2025. So we're going to true everything up in 2024. Big point here is the state's not going to be using that grand list that you're generating in 24 for anything. So this is purely so that you can get used to reconciling your grand list, get a little comfortable in 24. Then you can move all of your exemptions to 25, and that will be the first where the grand list will be used for all the stuff the state does, and you'll be able to print it and use it for all your municipal items as well. This rollover function for exemptions is going to be there every year too. So in 25, as you're going through, you're finalizing your grant situated. When you're ready to move into 26, you can roll your exemptions into 26. It will push everything forward for you, and you'll be able to begin your work there. One other important thing I neglected to mention is we do have that list of veterans exemptions from the VA. It's loaded in the system. It's ready to go for 25. Once we get that issue at the top of the 411 resolved, we'll be creating the 25 veterans exemptions for you. So they'll all just be sitting there. You'll have to put in whatever exempt value you've adopted as a municipality, but the actual list of exemptions will be just sitting there waiting for you. So if you want to put in a 40,000, you can just do set all to dollar value, 40,000. It will set them all to 40 for you. So those will be coming along as well. So once you roll your exemption to 25, again, we'll look at this in the demo. It'll make more sense once I'm actually doing it on the screen. But once you've rolled to 25, you're just going to do the same thing in 25. Do a 25 CAMA upload. Work through, go to your exemptions, run the exemption audit report, and then correct any errors that you might need to for 25. Then you're ready to go. So that's the kind of full process to get you rolling from reconciling everything in 24 and then pushing it forward into 25. So one thing you do want to take a look at here is your missing dates and expirations in 25, right? We're coming up to town meeting. So this is going to show you anything that's going to be expiring around town meeting once you push everything in 25. So you do want to take a look at that as well. And then that's a typo there. You are now ready for your first 25 grand list. So we've done 24, we've rolled our exemptions into 24, we've taken a look, or into 25, excuse me, we've taken a look at our 25 exemptions. Now we're going to go to 25, and we're just going to create our new grand list and do the same process over again. So kind of 24 is a little bit of a sandbox for everybody to get used to it. We'll push everything into 25, and then we'll be all set here pretty far in advance from when you're going to actually need to start printing these out and using them for your statutory duties. So one moment here as I just switch over so that I can do a quick demo for you. So number one, we want to be sure that we are in 2024. So you'll need to probably go back to 2024 here to make sure that you're in the right year. We see our new kind of little exemption things are right over here. So that means that we have our new exemption right over here, and our new TIF module right over here. So right next to current use and homestead. And we have some new options here in grand list management. So this is where we do our CAMA upload, and I'm just going to zoom in just a little bit so maybe folks can see better. So we have a couple new things here. We have assessment uploads. So this is where we've always done our CAMA upload. This is also where we're going to generate our grand list. And we have our grand list viewer. And I'm going to show you the grand list viewer now, because this is where you can look at everything together. If you want to see exactly what we have in the system, you can take a look at the grand list viewer and it will show you. So really straightforward. We'll just do a search and just click on a property here. So this gives us our basic parcel information. If there was a mobile home, that would be here. If they have exemptions, this is apparently a residential approved skating rink. You'll see your exemptions here. If it's current use, we'll see our current use right here. And then our valuation. So we've got all of our breakdown of values. PY means prior year. And then this is taxable values over here. So this is our listed minus the exemptions, current use that you see up here to get our taxables. You can also see if there was a homestead received and when the homestead was received to see where that should be as well. So this viewer is just here for you so that you can take a look at exactly everything together for each parcel. So that's there, but we'll start with the assessment upload here. So again, this is the screen that you're used to. So I'm just going to use this one here that I've made a grand list, but you'll click create grand list. It will aggregate everything for you. And again, this is your 2024 as build CAMA upload that coincides with your January 15th grand list submission. So we would do a create grand list and then we'll do a view. So I'll click view. And now I'm looking at a summary here of my real property, my TIFs, my exemptions, and my current use, all grouped by my category codes. And again, this is just showing here as a summary for you. We do have our reports drop down here, and this is probably what you're going to use more than anything else. So these are all over here. We have our 411 summary PDF. You're only seeing double because there's a state and a town permission, and I have both. So we see them double here. You'll just see one. So if we run our grand list 411 report here, it'll pop up. We'll take a look at it. So again, format, zoom in. Very similar to what you're used to. Again, non-taxable are in this total right now. I just have to test that fix and we'll get that corrected very quickly. We've got our, oops, I zoom, there we go. We've got our personal property down here. So our cable, equipment, and inventory, we want to make sure that that's all showing correctly. We have our exemptions down here. Same categories that you guys are used to. I think these subtotals might be a little bit different, or the wording might be a little bit different, but it's generally the same categories that everybody's used to. And then when we go into all the same stuff that you're used to seeing here. So our list of contracts, etc. It's going to go down to our special exemptions, I think. So just the same 411 that you guys are used to, formatted a tiny bit differently, but same general thing that you're looking for. The language here was updated a little bit by PBR, but generally, again, same signature language here. And there is, as you guys have had before, a separate signature page report that has all the other signatures and attestations and all of that fun stuff that you have to do as well. So again, that's our 411. So I think that'll be your primary reconciliation device and primarily on the first page. So this top section here, and once it doesn't include non-taxable, and then this section down here for your exemptions should all tie out to your NEMRC grand list. So this is our grand list. So let's say something's off with the exemptions. Let's go see if we can get that sorted out. So I'm going to use my breadcrumbs and go back to my main here. And then I want to take a look at the exemptions themselves. So I'm just going to go into exemptions. I have my summary of exemptions here. And again, my buckets. So 5 properties here, 1 property there, 3 churches, 8 cemeteries, more cemeteries than churches. I think they tend to accumulate. We have our solar, we have our state exemptions, our veterans, etc. So again, a summary here of all the different types and the number of properties that we have enrolled, and then our exemption amounts. So our municipal exemption, our homestead, and our non-homestead. So these are the totals for all of the properties that are in each of those. So the first thing we're going to do here, your import log. We have things to do. So these are those 3 spans we looked at. We would look those up in NEMRC, figure out what was going on, and add those exemptions. Again, almost nobody should see that. It should just say no errors found, in which case you're good to move on. Here are our reports here. So our audit report and our regular exemption report in Excel or PDF. We'll do the regular exemption report first. And I'll zoom in a little bit so that we can see. So again, parcel by parcel listing of each type of exemption. So these are our solars, and for homestead, non-homestead, municipal, I might have zoomed in 1 click too much. Yep. Listed value minus the exemption is your taxable value. So if something's off, this is a great place to check and just say, hey, compare this against your NEMRC reports. Is everything lined up here? And it just goes through each type. There are a bunch of cemeteries here. So that's a really handy report. You can also download this into Excel and have an Excel listing of all of your exemptions, which is kind of cool. And then there's the audit report here. So we'll run that and we'll take a look at that. That one takes a little longer because it's doing a bunch of comparisons here against last year. So we'll just give it a sec. All right, so here's our audit report. So once again, it gives you your section name and then tells you what's in the section. So these are our new exemptions. So they don't have a 2023 exemption record. Again, in 24, this is the first year we're importing this stuff. Don't put too much stock into this year versus last year comparison. In 25, it will work, right? We'll have everything loaded into 24. We'll push it into 25. And now the prior year comparison will work in 25. So a lot of new exemptions here. Deleted exemptions. So this will show you records or exemptions that have gone away. Veterans that the town granted but weren't on the VA's list. So we see a couple of those. We want to get to the bottom of that. People that are on the VA's list but not getting the exemption from the town. So we know the span and who the VA owner is, but there is no exemption on there. So those 2 are just checking on your veterans. Exemptions greater than the listed value. You shouldn't see anything here, but just in case, if you ever get to an exemption that's more than the listed value somehow, they'll show up on that part of the report. And then any properties whose value changed last year to this year that you want to relook at their exemptions. So that's the audit report. Again, this is basically what your DA checks for when they're looking at your exemption. So if you can get this report run and take a look at it before they take a look at it, hopefully they won't find anything since you're both kind of checking for the same items. Okay, so what if we did find something? Well, if I go in here, I can view my exemptions. And I've got my list of properties here that are getting that exemption, my municipal, my homestead, my non-homestead exemption. If I need to make an adjustment to that, I can just go in and edit it here. So these are my exempt amounts. I can adjust those if I want. Once again, I can attach a file here if I want, like a public PIES, for example. You could put that attachment right here. We have our hyperlink out here to our statute, so we can get to those pretty easily. And again, this is just editing. The add screen is exactly the same. So if I'm adding a new exemption, I pick this property, it lands right over there. So that's how we edit our exemptions. It's pretty straightforward. Clicking this button, set exemption to listed value. So what are these? Municipally owned property? They're all 100% exempt, right? The municipality doesn't have any tax liability. So we could click set the exemption to the listed value. And it says, do you want to do it for both? Yeah, let's do education. Let's do municipal. So we'd update the municipal. Didn't change because I've already done this. But you'll notice here, it's setting it right up to that maximum value. So you can do that for both education and for listed. For veterans, for example, you'd probably set it to a dollar value. So you can do your 40,000 and your 10 or whatever you've adopted. For education, it's going to find homestead, non-homestead based on the homestead that's filed. So you don't have to worry about picking which one. It'll do it based on what we have on file, and then it'll get updated as they come in. So that'll set all of the properties in this bucket to a particular dollar value for you. You also have attachments and notes available here. So if you wanted to add a particular note about this type of exemption or one of the properties in it, could just add that note. That would go to next year as well. So if there are kind of unique things about this exemption type in your property, you can add notes here. You can also add attachments. Might be good if your town has voted a particular voted exemption in and you just want to throw up the meeting minutes for the vote so that you can just have that, you know, exactly which meeting it was voted on and the date, and that just lives there with that exemption moving forward in time. So that's how we edit exemptions, set exemptions. Downloading the billing is something Chris and I are actively working on now. So this is how you'll get exemptions back into your NEMRC for billing. Again, I mentioned the add new exemption type. It's hiding out right down here. So if you do need a new bucket, if you don't have one of the buckets already to add something to and you need to add a new one, you can find the right bucket down here and add it. And if you try to add a bucket that's already there, it's going to say, hey, I already got one of those. Go find it instead of adding a new one. So let's say that we have made our changes here. We're looking pretty good. We're going to go back. We're going to go all the way back, and we're going to go into our grand list, and we are going to update it. So now I'm just going to recalculate. So again, if you want to leave it the way you first started and just have it be, this is my first grand list, I'm going to leave it. Just do another CAMA upload and create a new grand list, or just recalculate it. It's going to say, are you sure? This is going to update exemptions, current use, and TIF. I'll say, okay. Gathering all that information for me. And again, freezing that now too. So now I'm going to go in and view my grand list, and now everything is updated. So all my updated exemptions are showing in here, and everything is trued up. So now I can go back to my 411, run that report again, and check to see if whatever I was trying to correct is now corrected. So maybe I would go down and look at my exemptions here and look for one of my exemption numbers here on the summary to be corrected so that it matches my NEMRC 411. So once it matches, you're good to go to 2025. So how do we do that? Pretty straightforward. We just roll the exemptions to 2025. So 2 heads up on this. Your veterans won't go. So these 4 veterans, they're not going to 25. We're going to make new veterans exemptions for you in 25. So don't worry about those for the moment. They'll all be created for you once we get this next build loaded up in the next day or so. So it's just going to push everything to 25, and we'll go over here, flip back to 25. Now we'll go into our working grand list, our working 25. Get our CAMA upload from whatever system we're uploading that from. Once it's processed, we'll create a grand list and we'll start in 25. So this will be the first grand list that we'll really be using in VTPIE. So I've got one more slide, and then I'm sure we've got a lot of questions, so we'll get to that. So immediate actions, if you haven't set or sent over your 411 to PVR, make sure you do that so that we can load your exemptions. The grand list went live on Monday. If you haven't already, or you don't have somebody manage your non-Microsoft CAMA, send along a CAMA export to tax CAMA support at Catalis.gov, and we'll do a quick review for you. In the interim, just keep using the NEMRC grand list export that you've been using. We've tested that a million times, works perfectly fine. So the reconciliation process, reconcile your 24 exemptions. Again, we're not doing anything with what you're doing in 24 right now. So no pressure in 24. Feel free to make as many grand lists as you want until you get that balance and everything ties out. Then you can roll to 25, upload a 25 CAMA. If you're using NEMRC, you do that right from the grand list. And then we'll make a grand list in VTPIE, reconcile the exemptions. And remember, 25 exemptions are starting with whatever the end of your 24 is. So you might need to add a couple of exemptions, subtract a couple to get the ones that you might have already been working on in your NEMRC grand list for 25. So once that's all trued up, you're ready to go. You're ready to move forward with your 25 grand list. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat, which no doubt is full.
Pat, it's Jen. Do you want me to read the questions to you?
Yes, please.
Okay. Christina's asking if you can delete a grand list once it's created.
You can delete the CAMA upload, which will take the whole thing with it, or you can just do a new CAMA upload and just kind of leave it there.
And she also noted that grand list reports were available in text format as well.
Okay. I think they're all PDFs in Excel.
Let's see. Can you demonstrate again how you get to the 411 because they're not seeing it in their VTPIE? I would just make note that this morning when I logged into VTPIE, it automatically bumped me to the year 2025. So to make sure when you start this process that you change your year to 2024. I don't know if that's happening for everyone's VTPIE, but
it is.
So that's potentially why you're not seeing a 411. if you're in 2025 and you haven't uploaded yet.
So let me, where the grand list lives. So in upload assessment, I've already done it, but this would be create grand list. Once you create it, it'll change to view. And once you view it, your 411 is just a report here.
What do you do with exemptions that do not fit the listed categories?
As in, so two parts to that question, maybe. This is groupings of the exemption categories, as they always have been on the 411. In the app, if you're looking for an exemption and you don't see it, so for example, if I go to exemptions and I don't find the type that I need, I think you need to reach out to PVR and try to figure out if it's indeed one that's not here, or if you should be using one that's already here.
Okay, and then I'm pretty sure you touched on the veterans exemptions that they'll get loaded in. They don't
Yep.
get transferred year over year, and you'll reload for 2025.
Correct.
So someone's asking, when you go, it says download NEMRC to VTPIE and then go to upload. How do you know where or how to upload? It gives you an FTP option or to pick a file, but I have no idea where the file would be.
So if you're using NEMRC, you would go into NEMRC, click the send to VTPIE, and then I would go add, and you'll have an FTP option here, because that means it found a file. If it says upload from FTP, that means it found the file that you put from NEMRC. You'd click that, and it will bring you to this screen, but without a file. It'll already have the file for you. So you can just click upload.
And can you explain the procedure for exemption value changes from prior year in a reevaluation year?
Sure. So if I had just gone through a reval, I would go into my 25 exemptions and I would basically, once my values are set, I don't know that I'd go crazy with it just yet, but once my values are set, I would go in and for my statutory, I would set all the exemptions to the listed value. For the ones like veterans, where it's all just a set dollar value for everybody, or personal property, I guess, kind of similar, I would go and set all of those to a dollar value. And then I would go in and do the individuals, the one-offs where the exemption is set for the property. And then I would run my audit report. And that last section would say, here are all the properties where the listed values have changed. It's probably going to be every exemption that you have, because they'll probably all changed if you're doing a reval. But I would just go through and check them off one by one and say, yep, I've checked this property, I've updated the exemption, like we've caught all of this. That would be my recommendation, to kind of make sure that you catch all of that. But that's also something your DA can help with, of course.
Where are partial statutory exemptions listed?
So a partial statutory could be any statutory exemption where you're not granting the 100% exemption. Obviously, municipally owned properties, stuff like that, that doesn't work. They show up on the 411 exactly where they always have. I believe if I go to view my grand list and I go to my 411 summary, right up here, they'll appear right over here as a partial statutory.
And then, are one of the pages, Pat, does that have the list on there? I can't remember.
I don't remember either. It might. Yeah, if it was there before, it's there now. I don't remember exactly, but on non-taxable property list. There is an exemption report for partial statutories too.
Okay. Comcast under inventory has 0 value in every column. Should we enter the exemption value manually?
So if you're, oh, yes, sorry. Yes. So you're saying that's a good question. So you're saying you have an exemption for Comcast, but there's nothing in the exemption, which can happen on the way over. So for example, this would be 0 as well. You would just go in and edit, set the exemption. And for Comcast, you wouldn't have all of these municipal homestead, non-homestead. But you would just set the exemption value, save that, and then recalculate your grand list, and you'll get that update.
Is there a way to print the information or data for real TIF exemptions and current use displayed on the screen for each one, other than a print screen after selecting each one?
There is not right now, so that's a good question. So that's, can you print this? And no current use for 25 yet. Don't be surprised about that. No, they're beyond print screen. We don't have any way to print this view yet.
Is there any ability to create more space with the signature lines?
Sure. Yeah, just probably send an email to your DA asking to put in a little more space there.
Jackie from Cabot, I would suggest that you reach out to your district advisor if you're not showing a 411 in your 2024, and if they can't help you, we can work together with Pat to get that solved. I think that you answered this, but I'll ask it one more time. What's the time frame for fixing the 411 reporting issues?
This week for sure. I'm hoping to get that in this evening, so it'll be ready for you tomorrow morning, though. I just have to test it myself to make sure it's resolved.
And we should wait for that to be resolved before rolling over to 25.
Yeah, I probably would.
And should they wait to do homesteads in 25 if exemptions in 24 have issues?
I don't think you need to wait to review your homesteads in 25. I also don't think we've gotten any to load yet. I don't think they've been
Usually
sent
it's
over.
like the 15th, right?
Yeah.
I got a message from Vision that my VTPIE extract is now available for West Rutland. Please clarify whom this should be sent once I run it. That's Lisa, right?
Hey, Lisa, this is Patrick. So it goes to taxcamaSupport@catalysgov.com, or send it to me. I think I have yours directly from Corey, actually. But either of those would work.
So Jeff was giving an example of an exemption greater than the grand list value where the veterans exemption was at $40,000, but the mobile home is only valued at 30.
Yes. So if you went into your exemption Good clarification. So if I go into tax programs, exemptions, veterans, if I set all my exemptions to a dollar value and I pick 40 and it's only worth 30, it'll set the exemption right to 30. So if it's greater than the listed, it'll just set the exemption to the listed for you.
On the veterans list, do you have an updated list to include properties that sold veterans that died, meaning the list that includes town responses?
I have the list that Christy sends to me, and I don't question what Christy sends to me.
So Christy's sending Pat the list that comes from the VA. And then you're gonna update it with each new list we get, correct, Pat?
That is correct.
If you have a contracted exemption or stabilization, do you put the actual contracted amount or what the real value amount would be? Example is if a property is a certain percentage, like 20% of real value of $100,000, would you input 20,000 or 80,000?
Good question. So let's say this was 100,000 because I can't do this math quite in my head. You would put the 20,000 here. It actually works out pretty well. If this was 200, you would put your exemption down here. So the 20% down here, which would get you to the taxable. So in your example, this would be 80. So assessed minus the 20% would get you your 80.
Okay, we have a town-owned property that is only partially exempt as part of the property is leased to a business. Will we be able to pull that apart and indicate a list value for the lease or non-exempt portion?
Yes. So here we're a municipally owned property. So all you would need to do is just reduce your exemption. So right now I'm fully exempt, 350, 700, 350, 700 is exempt, which leaves me with nothing. So just change this to whatever the exemption should be for the municipal portion. And the taxable value here should only be essentially the listed value of the portion that's not used for government.
Our current 411 shows veterans listed as 10,000 and greater than 10,000. Is this going to be the same in VTPIE?
Yes.
Thanks, Stacy. He answered the question about your setting. She asked, can you set all veterans exemptions values except one? We have one where the listed value is less than the 40,000 exemption, which you said even if you use that function, it won't set it higher than the listed value.
That's correct. So for things like that, just a good workflow is, in this case, if I put 40 and it was not worth 40, it would bring it down to the listed value and not try to exempt 40,000 on a $30,000 property. But for example, these municipal properties that we were just looking at, I could set them all to listed value and then go in and pick one of them and say, except for this one, now I'm going to adjust this one a little bit. So you can use this as like a bulk action to set everything. And then if you need to take a couple separately and adjust them, you can do that.
And you just use the edit function, right, Pat, to do that?
Yep. Right over here. So now we're in just this property's exemption. So we can make individual adjustments. And that might be a good thing for our partial statutory example. If you have a document that says, hey, we lease out 20% of town hall to a catering business, you could put that here, attach it to the exemption, and then that would be documented for anybody that looks at this, that's what's going on.
And then someone asked if there's going to be a recording of this meeting available. And the answer, I believe, is yes, it's being recorded and it should end up hopefully on the Department of Taxes training website. And I don't know, will you have it available in any of the help stuff for you, Pat?
Yes. Yeah, we'll have it available as well.
The current use exemption on NEMRC is rounded to the nearest 100. The VTPIE current use exemption is not. Do we make changes to VTPIE?
That is a TBD.
Once we create the 2025 grand list and reconcile it in VTPIE, do we make changes in VTPIE and no longer in NEMRC, or both, or only NEMRC?
So, and this is a good one to pay attention to the answer in. Once you've got your exemptions over into VTPIE, 24 is all set, you've moved everything into 24. You can start maintaining your exemptions in VTPIE. If you're using the grand list Microsoft combination, you'll still do your transfers and all your other stuff like that as normal. But your exemptions and TIF, if you have them, would be in VT5.
Just to confirm, we are reconciling 2024 VTPIE with 2024 NEMRC grand list prior to rolling over.
Yes.
If we have subdivisions and value updates to input after the rollover, we upload the NEMRC working grand list to VTPIE in 2025.
That is correct.
And then I think we need to, I know Chris has been trying to help Jacqueline from Cabot. And I think we just need to reach out to Jacqueline in terms of what's
Okay, yeah,
happening.
we
Sounds like
can
an
set up a
isolated
meeting.
instance. But that's the end of the questions at the moment.
Excellent. Well, I'm just going to throw up this slide here so the support email is there for you. I appreciate everybody coming and all the great questions. Don't hesitate to reach out to your DA and Catalis support here as you need it. And keep an eye on the listserv for updates on when we get this top of the 411 resolved and so forth.
And Christy will be posting the step-by-step instructions to Comp 60 again shortly. So if
Yep.
you're looking for those
And then-
instructions that Pat showed earlier, those are the instructions we created that walk you through the same exact process that Pat just showed today.
Yep. So step by step, they're really nice. So keep your eye out for those too.
Stacy asked if they will be doing change of appraisals and the grand list printout from VT5.
Yes. So change of appraisal notices and the grand list where it's like a couple, 3 or 4 properties per page with the 2 boxes. Yep. That's one of the reports in VTPIE. I think that one's just called the grand list report. It's right next to the 411.
The instruction documentation is going to be emailed on Comp 60. And if you're unsure if you get those emails, you should reach out to your district advisor and they also can provide you with a copy of the instructions.
Great.
And do we still need to update exemption changes in NEMRC? I know the maintenance will now be in VTPIE. I'd say for this year, Stacy, you should for the 2025 year. Do it in both places. And Jill said we'll also post the instructions on the tax department website with the training video. Is there gonna be another TIF reconciling presentation?
Yep, we'll get together with TIF towns one by one, because they're each a little bit different. So we'll just set up meetings and run through your individual TIF.
Okay, sorry. I didn't see you answer that in chat. Not fast enough. And then Chris is just saying, make sure it is important to this year do your exemptions in NEMRC, because if you plan to do your tax billing in NEMRC, that will create problems if they're not the same in both places. And is there an updated form that shows what NEMRC grand list and what is NEMRC grand list and what is CAMA and what is VTPIE? I'm assuming she's talking about, Mimi's talking about that list of items, which is this is where you do what.
Oh, yeah, it hasn't changed, but we can share that as well. Yep, it's actually in the CAMA specification document, so yep, we can share that. Okay.
All right. Will tax billing be available in VTPIE this year?
We are working on it. Keep your ear out for announcements from the tax department. That is the last module we have, though. Everything else is deployed, including the utility valuation.
How often do non-Microsoft shouldn't non-Microsoft cameras be sent? I'm not quite
So-
sure. Go ahead.
So the frequency of your CAMA upload is up to you. Essentially, if you're going to do something in VTPIE and you know that you've made changes that will affect it. So for example, if you subdivided a parcel and you need to go put some exemptions on it or something, you're going to have to do that CAMA upload to get that subdivision into VTPIE. So if you want to think about it simply, if you're going to do stuff in VTPIE, start with a CAMA upload. If you want to think a little more detailed, if you know you've updated things in CAMA that you're going to need, then you definitely have to do an update. Oh, just send over Proval data once. I'll take a look at it and send you back essentially the top of the grand list and say, hey, this is what I got from the Proval data. Just so that we confirm we've got all the properties. If you have personal property that came over too, all that fun stuff. Oh yeah, if you send it in September, we're all set. Can we upload directly from non-Microsoft CAMA into VTPIE? Yes, you can, but you just want to make sure that we've tested that upload for your town first. And if you're wondering if your vendor sent it in, just send an email and ask and we can let you know. But we just want to make sure that that's 100% sorted out so you don't lose a property or something in the transfer. And we want to make sure that it's all good to go before we start leaning on that fully.
And I just reiterate again that you should still be, if you're uploading directly from your CAMA, that you should still be making sure that everything is in your NEMRC and in VTPIE, so that when you finish 2025 for the year, June matches in both locations.
Yep. Appreciate everybody's time. Don't hesitate to reach out to us or your DAs for assistance, and look forward to getting everything ironed out in 25.